Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the last of our series on debunking the myths of resilience from the Resilience Factory. So today we're going to be looking at the 10th and final myth surrounding resilience. Now, I've spent the past week or so doing a lot of reading around resilience, which has been fantastic. Just reading extensively on everything that's written about it. And once again, it's been surprising to read so many of the myths that we've been talking about. They've been written about by people who have been studying resilience. And the three which I've seen coming up most often have been those first three that we covered. And the reason that I'm looking at that has been thinking about the way that people are describing resilience by people who are writing about it more theoretically or academically. They talk about resilience as a sticking plaster that you can put on. It's something you do quickly in difficult times. So one, that myth about resilience being about bouncing back, that you can just get back quickly, back on your horse again, something like that. It just isn't so. And those sort of things, that a way of being resilient like that is going to sustain you in the short term, but is not going to lead a life of living authentically. Another one of the things I heard about, and actually somebody wrote about, was saying resilience is a suit of armor that you put on, which we talked about in our second myth about resilience as all being about being tough and strong. And when you think about that, about resilience being a suit of armor that you put on, I was thinking more about that metaphor this weekend and thinking, not only does that forge disconnection from yourself and the outside world, walking around with a suit of armor, but you think about one of those medieval suits of armor, how heavy they were, and you think that'll sustain you in the short term, but there's no way you can go through your life living like that as if you're wearing a suit of armor. It is just going to become too heavy. It's going to weigh you down. It's going to just become too much, and then you won't be able to survive like that. So another thing that came up very much was around about resilient people not doing emotions, or certainly not doing hard emotions. Now, I've been disheartened to read again emotions being talked about as being positive or negative emotions, which I think is doing emotions in themselves a great disservice, because emotions are simply that, they are emotions. But by separating them into positive and negative emotions and talking about go for the positive emotions, stay away from the negative ones, all that does is try and bury something that really needs looking at. And the idea that we can just focus on the positive emotions and not look at difficult, harder to deal with, more challenging emotions is a fallacy. And I came across a great quote by Sigmund Freud which really sums that up, which says, "Unexpressed emotions will never die. They're buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways." And that's what we know for sure. If you just try and do the positive emotions, the good ones, the ones that feel easy to deal with, and you try and skip over the ones which for you are harder to deal with, then that's going to come back and bite you. So it's interesting to see that even books that are written about resilience continue to perpetuate the myths and to talk about them. So it's good to know that we're on the right track with this, and that the way that we're talking about authentic resilience is about building a lifetime of living a fully lived life, a life that is well lived, no matter what happens to you. So that brings us on to our 10th and final myth that we're going to be looking at, which is this, that the resilient people face fewer problems than others, and so they look like they cope better. So the truth is that everybody faces tough situations and challenges in life that require resilience. And it's not just about the major traumas and the challenges and the losses. It's about living an authentically resilient everyday life. It's about resilience just to get you through with hope and perspective and the energy to make each day count. And we've all had, and we all will have our resilience tested to some degree every day, but more so at other times of our life. Now, anyone who hasn't experienced any major trauma thus far in their life is incredibly fortunate. And yet, even with those who remain relatively unscathed by big traumas or change or loss in their life, they can still feel stressed, and as if they're merely surviving and getting through life. And so what's interesting to see is this paradox that people who've Some people who are going through very little can appear very, very stressed and not able to take too much of life. And yet some other people who've gone through major traumas and even are at the time can appear to be getting through it and riding this wave in an easier way. And they appear to be even thriving in the face of adversity. So that we know that approximately 50% of people who face severe challenges and trauma go on to develop what is known as post-traumatic growth, which is really about growing and thriving in the face of adversity. People who've been through major situations and have found their lives to become more positive as a result afterwards, which seems extraordinary, but we know is true. But that doesn't happen accidentally. Post-traumatic growth requires learning the lessons. It really requires consciously seeking growth and meaning and purpose in our lives, regardless of the pain or the circumstances that we find ourselves in. And as Viktor Frankl said, again, one of the writers I've been reading about again in some of his lectures that he did shortly after the Second World War, Viktor Frankl says, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. So post-traumatic growth from hard situations doesn't just happen. It requires that we actually consciously change ourselves. So authentically resilient people really choose not to let their circumstances define them. Rather, they integrate them to allow them to live a fully thriving life, not just surviving. And over the reading that I've been doing in the last couple of days and weeks, I've been reading some of the most extraordinary stories of survival in the face of hardship and adversity. Unbelievable stories that people have been through and the courage that they face, and it's just shown the triumph of the human spirit. And yet in some ways I haven't been surprised, because I know that with authentic resilience, which comes from deep within, which really requires us changing from the inside, not just putting on a plaster, a suit of armor, I know that anything is possible. So we've come to the end of this series of the 10 myths, debunking the 10 myths surrounding resilience. So then if we look with that's what resilience isn't, we're faced with thinking, well, what is resilience? So I'm going to leave talking about what our definition, the authentic resilience version of from the Resilience Factory, of what the definition is. So we say this, that authentic resilience is a critical life skill. It's the powerful ability to thrive, survive and grow in the face of stress, change, adversity and trauma. And the good news is that everyone has the capacity to develop greater levels of authentic resilience. So we're going to leave you with a few updates. Last night we started our 9th online course since lockdown started. Quite extraordinary to think about the amount of people from literally all over the world who we've been able to teach the lessons of authentic resilience to over the last couple of weeks. And it's been amazing to see so many people. And we're continuing to do that. We've got courses coming up in July and August. But the one change we wanted to tell you about for the time being is that because of the depth of the work that we're doing, that we've learned from ourselves, from our reading, from our clients, and from so many other experiences, and just going deeper into this work, is that we're now taking what has been a 5-part course of 2 hours each into 6 sessions. So all of our courses from July will be going into 6 sessions rather than 5. And then the other work we're doing in continuing to make our work deeper and more lived is to look at teaching this on a different platform as well, so that in the months to come, you're going to have all of the teaching on authentic resilience open to you, to anybody, anywhere in the world, to be learning at any time. That's going to be really exciting work, and it's going to provide way more content than we have been able to in our live courses. So please watch this space. So we're really excited about the changes that are coming up. And for the moment, we're not going to be doing regular Facebook Lives at this time on a Tuesday any longer, but we will continue to sporadically do them. We're going to be answering some questions. So if there's anything that you particularly would like to hear about from us doing Facebook Lives on over the next coming weeks, please drop us a line and we'll be really happy to answer the questions that you've got and to talk more about our experiences, those of other people, and about the research that we've done and the stuff that we're really looking into and looking forward to teaching you way more about how to live a life that is absolutely about thriving and not just about getting through each day. So until we see you again, it's been lovely doing the series with you. We've really enjoyed it, and it's been something new and different for us, and we really look forward to seeing you on this platform again. Have a great and a sunny day wherever you are in the world.